In today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how to do a very simple sprint. So you can press left, so your player's running this speed, and when you press left shift, you run this fast. It's very simple, so I'll show you how to do it. We only really need one thing for, well, we need a couple of things, but what we need to do, we need to set up the input for the button to sprint. So go down to your content drawer and then go to third person, or yours might be first person, and then go to input, and then on actions, right click in there and go to input action, and then just name this IA sprint. And then when you've made that, go to the folder above, which is input, and then go to the IMC default, and then under mappings, click this cross button, and then when it's dropped down, go to IA sprint, which is the one you just made, and then underneath that, this is the key that you want to assign it to. So for this purpose, we're just going to do left shift, but you could have anything. It could be a joypad button, you could have it as the left mouse button, that can be anything really. So just press save, close that folder, and then just go save all. Now go open your third person character blueprint. So if you don't know where that is, go to third person, or yours might be first person, go to blueprints, and then for it you'll have this character, and then open that up. So mine's already open, and then it will look something like this. So just find an empty space. So if you notice, you've got like jump there, move there. So just find an empty space. I like to keep it neat. So then just right click there, and then when the search comes up, put IA dash sprint, which is the one. So you're just searching for whatever you called it. So even if you called your input sprint fast, when you go to search, type in sprint fast, but we called it IA sprint. So if you type in IA underscore sprint, it will come up, and then it will look like this. So if you press this little drop down arrow, triggered, started, ongoing, cancelled, completed. Right, we want to trigger the sprint, right? So the main thing that we're messing around with in this blueprint is the character movement. So if you come up to this top left here, that's all your stuff. So your camera, your mesh, if you go to viewport, your mesh, your camera boom, arrow component, that just is so you can get translations. That's not too important. And then at the bottom, it's got character movement. So if you go back over to your event graph, if you drag that character movement next to your sprint, right? And if you click on this character movement now, on the right side, this is all your values of your character movement. So you've got gravity scale, max acceleration, braking friction. We're looking for max walk speed. So one thing I would advise is get to know all these values and get to know what they all do. So you've got like braking friction. Some of these values are really good. Max step height. Ground friction is a good one. Jump velocity, which is sort of how high you jump, how fast you jump, and stuff like that. But because we drag this character movement in here, right? Because we drag this character movement in here, we can get all these values from this. So if we pull out of this, we can get set max walk speed, right? If we go back to our character movement, our current walk speed, if you look down here, max walk speed 500. That's how fast we're walking at the moment, right? So what we want to do is say set this to 1,000, right? And then trigger that. So that means that we're normally walking at 500 walk speed, but when we press that left shift that we made, we're going to walk 1,000. So it's really that simple. So look, so we're walking. If we press max walk speed, press left shift now, we're going 1,000. But now look, we're constant. Even when we let go of the left shift, we're still walking at 1,000 because we haven't told it to change. So escape out the game, go back to your third person character. So what all we did there was tell it whenever we press left shift, which is our sprint, to go 1,000. But then that's it. We haven't told it to do anything else. So what we need to do is copy and paste that, the one that you've just made here, max walk speed. Set this back down to 500. And this is important as well. Make sure that your character movement is plugged into that, so it knows where to get this value from. It's getting the value from the character movement, which is that whole list of information down here, right? And then from completed, drag into there. So now what it's going to do is, look, we're going to sprint at 1,000, but then when we let go of the sprint, it's going to go back to 500. Walking at 500, going at 1,000, going back to 500, going to 1,000, going back to 500. And it's really that simple. And with this sort of stuff, you can do all sorts of stuff. So if you go back to the character movement and you look at jump velocity is 700, right? So even on your sprint, if you wanted to, you could drag out of this and put set jump velocity, set Z jump Z velocity. Always check what the default one is. So our jump velocity at the moment, jump Z velocity is 700. So let's say we set this to 900, right? And then drag that to there, and then copy and paste and set it back to 700. Drag that into there. Always remember that it needs something to get the information from, which is your character movement, right? So now, look, we're gonna, when we press a sprint, we're gonna sprint at 1,000, and we're gonna have a jump velocity of 900. And then when we let go, we're gonna sprint to 500 and have a jump velocity back to 700, what it was. So basically, it means that you can jump higher when you sprint. So jump, jump. But if I sprint and jump, I'm jumping that high now. See? And let go, jump that high. Sprint, jump that high. So you can do all sorts of tricks like that. So you could, what I tend to do is do things like make it so that if you're running fast, it changes the braking speed. And if you're coming to a quick stop, it changes the braking friction. And you can really mess around with all your values in there. But yeah, that's just a simple sprint. So you don't need to change your jump velocity. You really, it's just up to you what you want to do with it. You can even make it, if you wanted to, that it was the opposite way around. So, and don't forget, you can change all these values as well. So you could make your default value say your default value could be 600, but don't forget that it's whenever you complete your sprint, pretty much you want to always go back to your default. So if you've got a max walk speed of 600 and you've changed the defaults to 600, you want to always make sure that when you're completing tasks like letting go of the sprint button, that you go back to the default. So you'd want to change that to whatever the default was. So your default 600 now, you change that to 600 as well. I mean, you might not, what you might want it to build up, or you know, just use your imagination how you want it to go. But yeah, there's little practices that I do, but yeah, you can do all sorts of things. You could even make it that when you're sprinting, you're playing a different animation for your character, or you know, basically you're just triggering off events, and that's about it. I hope that tutorial helps. This is a really beginner type tutorial, but yeah, I hope that helps, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.